Welcome to Mondays with Mike, where the topic is tropics. The topics is tropics. It is that time of the year when we start to see activity increase across the Atlantic Ocean, and right on schedule, we are beginning to see what is probably going to be the next named storm. So depending on what time you're watching this, it may have already been upgraded, but the next name on the list is the E storm, and it goes by the name of Erin, E-R-I-N. See, I have to keep pointing that out because when I hear Erin, I think Aaron Rodgers, Aaron Judge, but this is Erin. It looks like it's probably not only going to be the first named storm of the season, but I really think the first hurricane of the season. It's just in a prime environment for strengthening, which we'll talk about here and coming up in just a moment. May even become a major hurricane by the end of this week or this upcoming weekend. Now, will it have any effect on the United States? We're going to talk about that just ahead. And could there be more storms coming in behind it? Probably yes. So I think we'll go through a bit of a flurry of activity here, taking us through the rest of the month of August, and then we'll see what happens in September. Things usually really start to pick up in September. Obviously, our local forecast, we've kind of been in a pattern just about all summer with just a few exceptions where we've had scattered thunderstorms each day, and it's held temperatures down a little bit compared to where they normally are. We have officially hit 100 4 times in Houston, but all of those were at Bush Airport, and there's a sort of an unexplained rise in temperatures at Bush Airport. But across the rest of the area, it's mostly been like 95, 96, 97 just about every day, which is actually average. It's like normal for this time of the year. So it's nice to be at normal, and it's nice when we can avoid severe weather. Today, well, depending on when you're watching this here, Monday, there is going to be a chance for seeing some heavy downpours in a few spots, so watch out for that. And welcome back to school for a lot of the kids out there. I know Melissa Wilson was just telling me there's two kinds of parents. There's the boo-hoo parents and the yahoo parents, depending on if you're kind of sad, for your kid going back to school, or maybe you're just thrilled they're going back to school. So whichever camp you lie in, there is going to be a chance for seeing some scattered thunderstorms each day for the first week of school for just about every school district. I want to remind you that you can always tune in on Fox Local, where you're watching this, or if you're watching this on YouTube, get the Fox Local app on your phone or TV, because John Dawson, my friend and colleague John Dawson, has a great segment, the hurricane gear test, and then off season, when we're not in hurricane season, it's the emergency gear test. But for example, today in John's report, he had basically the equivalent of like a Swiss Army knife made by the company that makes Swiss Army knives, but it's geared a little bit more toward emergencies and things like that. Like it has a thing where if you're in your car in a flood, you can break the window kind of thing. It has a toothpick. I don't know why they always have toothpicks, don't they? These Swiss Army knives. Like, why are we picking our teeth? I don't know. But anyway, head to his YouTube page. It's meteorologist John Dawson, and also right here on Fox Local, you'll find a shelf item with all of his hurricane gear tests. And the reason I point this out is not just because I want you to watch his videos, but because it gets you thinking. You may not always necessarily want to buy the exact product that he is reviewing, but it may make you start to think like, okay, if I have to evacuate, should I get a go bag, which would be a backpack or something like that has everything you might need, like a little supply of water, maybe a flashlight, a place to put your prescription medication, some important paperwork that you could, put in there really quickly, and things like that. So, and he goes into a lot more detail than I could even remember. But anyway, so that's the way to go. We've also had some good explanations on there from Allison and from Ramisha about different aspects of hurricane season. So go there and check it out. So anyway, today we're going to take a look at this new system that's forming in the Atlantic and why it's likely to become a very strong hurricane. We'll also talk about what to expect for the rest of the month of August, and also a really cool graphic that Allison put together that gives you an idea of when we see these tropical waves come off the west coast of Africa. I always try to point out to you how far away they are. I'm like, look, this one's 4,000 miles away. This one's 4,500 miles away, but it's hard to visualize. So there's a graphic here I'm going to show you in a minute that gives you like how many days does it take when a thing is here, when it's here, when it's here. You know, how long does it take to get close to the USA? So I'm going to turn the camera around and we'll take a look at what's sort of looking at the graphics here behind me, and we'll look at what's happening out there for today and then what's expected to happen over the next few days. Wait till you see the GFS computer model and what it's showing with the development of this new storm in the Atlantic. You know, just in the few minutes since I recorded my little intro, we've had this system that I was telling you about upgraded. So totally not a surprise at all. So the Hurricane Center has upgraded that swirl to Tropical Storm Erin. So let's take a look. Erin is located near the Cape Verde Islands, or Cabo Verde Islands, and it is moving to the west 20 miles per hour. It has maximum sustained winds estimated at 45 miles per hour. Let me go ahead and put this into motion. Here's the most important part. Where is it going? Well, very likely it's going to keep moving almost due west for the next 3 to 5 days. I think there's an excellent chance that it becomes at least a Category 3, if not stronger. So we are looking for our first hurricane of the season. Also very likely our first major hurricane of the season. Major hurricane being Category 3, 4, or 5. So you need winds of above 111, so basically 115 miles per hour to be classified as a Cat 3. So that's what's predicted from the National Hurricane Center here. But very likely this is going to get even a little bit stronger, maybe as we head into day 5, day 6, day 7. So here's a look at what we're seeing right now on our visible satellite imagery. It's not much. I mean, this is really just the beginning of the system. It's the swirl that you see here on top. This part beneath it is just the intertropical convergence zone. We get clouds like this all the time there. But this one that's starting to swirl is the one that's been upgraded to the tropical storm. And it will probably stay a tropical storm for a day or two before it starts to strengthen, unless it just does something really, really unexpected. So the 5th named storm of the season. Remember, we're expecting between 13 and 19 or 13 and 18 named storms from NOAA. And they're still expecting 8 hurricanes, and so this will be the first one. I want to just emphasize to you, though, if you're watching us from Houston, some people might be watching us from elsewhere, but if you're watching us from Houston or from the Texas coastline or the Gulf Coast, this is how far away this system is from us. Approximately 4,300 miles. It is basically the other side of the world, okay? So I don't want you to worry about it coming our way anytime soon or get too nervous about it, because this one is super duper far away, and we have our own thunderstorms that we might be dealing with here in the short term. So just to put it in some perspective for you. Let me show you a couple of computer models and what they're depicting as far as the storm motion. Now, it's not going to differ that much from what the National Hurricane Center is showing, because after all, their forecast is based on these models. Not the Fox model, but these models. So here's our Fox weather model. And so we have this starting on Tuesday morning, and I'll go ahead and hit play on it. And we'll see it progress as this thing makes its way across the Atlantic. And at the very end, it ends up looking something like this. But I want you to notice the winds, how they're swirling around here. So these are the forecast surface winds at 12:15 on Friday early afternoon. That looks like a pretty well-defined eye, is what the Fox weather model is predicting. So that makes a lot of sense to me. That's definitely what I expect. Now, as we turn to the GFS computer model, the GFS can go out as long as 16 days. Now, I don't necessarily want to show you a 16-day forecast because it changes way, way, way too much from run to run. But day 1 through maybe day 5 or even day 7, we could maybe start to hone in on having a little bit more confidence in where it's depicting the storm. So we're starting here on Tuesday morning at 10 a.m. and you'll see that swirl right in the middle of your screen representing Tropical Storm Erin. Now it starts to ramp up, gets stronger and stronger and stronger, just like the Fox weather model is showing. then it starts to curve. Okay, so I want to run this back for you just to make sure that you see this curving that it's doing. So let me go ahead and see here, curves. You see, and by curves I mean turns to the north. So it looks like, oh gosh, it's headed toward Florida, and then boom. So at this point it wouldn't be a threat to Texas at all. Now I'm going to sort of break my own rules here and show you a little farther out what the GFS is showing. But I want you to please realize that we are going way, 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 way out in time right now. And this is no guarantee of anything. But the GFS is showing it way out here by Bermuda in 8 days. So this is a week from Tuesday. So this would put us at the 19th of August. And it's showing a monster hurricane pretty far off the east coast of the U.S. But this would be bringing some huge waves to the east coast here heading into next week. But if we want to be a little more reasonable about the time, we'll back it up here and say we can have with some confidence here that this is where it's going to be during this time frame between Friday, Saturday, Sunday. This looks pretty reasonable. During the same time here, we're not really seeing anything organized in the Gulf. We can look over here. We always want to look at what's happening in Africa as these tropical waves move across. And let's check this out. So let me find our slider here. So this is Monday. This is Monday today. And as we look ahead, I want to show you there's another tropical wave right there in the middle of your screen that's rolling off the coastline. That one will have a chance of strengthening. And there's another one, let's see, right there that's going to move off. The models are not really showing much of anything significant. If you just look at the winds themselves, you'll see a counterclockwise swirl there. Again, this is around the 19th of August. So anyway, so that's what we're seeing on the GFS computer model, which is important to look at because it's one of our primary forecast models. As far as the rest of the month of August, so I think we talked about this last week, how storms become much more common in the central Atlantic Ocean. This is getting into the time of year that we call the Cape Verde season. And by the way, I know that people will call it Cape Verde or Verde, but please correct me if I'm wrong. But it's Portuguese, it's not Spanish. So it's Portuguese, and I believe it's Cabo Verde. V-E-R-T, even though it's spelled V-E-R-D-E. So if anybody knows out there, let me know. I looked it up before. It said Cabo Verde, so that's what I've gone with. So anyway, the pink area here is the area that has actually the highest likelihood to have a storm begin. So these are called formation zones. It's not necessarily the track, but it pretty closely mirrors the track. So where this thing is starting is actually not super common for us to see a storm forming out this close to the Cape Verde Islands in August, but it's a tropical storm and it's still pretty small, and sometimes these little storms could pop up almost wherever they want to. But as it travels farther to the west, it runs into territory that's much more well known, for big hurricanes to develop. And then especially when it starts curving to the north of the islands, that's when it could get a lot stronger. Also, the Gulf is an area where we have development in the month of August also. Or you have storms that move across the Caribbean Sea and into the Gulf, like Hurricane Harvey did, or Hurricane Beryl did. Same thing. Hurricane Ike, moved across, like between Cuba and South Florida, and then made its way across the Gulf. So sometimes we have the luxury of watching these storms for days and days and days move across the Atlantic Ocean, sometimes weeks, a couple weeks, and we get to just really watch it every day. And sometimes you have a storm that forms right on your doorstep. As far as where we are in the season right now, I know it feels like we've been pretty quiet, but in reality, through the beginning of August, you don't typically have that many storms. Remember, we've had 4 named storms already, None of them being tremendous windstorms, but two of them were big rainmakers, and actually the most infamous of which will be Tropical Storm Barry, which didn't directly hit Texas at all, but a lot of the moisture, the remnant moisture from Barry, led to the deadly flash flooding in the hill country. So, even storms like that don't really have like a lot of fanfare with their landfall. They don't have high winds or anything like that. It wasn't a big storm with an eye or anything. It can have pretty far-reaching impacts inland. So that, and even that was a little bit of almost off the charts kind of moisture that moved into Texas. So anyway, so this map shows, this graph shows us how quickly things ramp up from, let's say, August 1st to August 20th. When you take a look at the chance of having a named storm out there, it more than doubles by August 20th compared to August 1st. Same thing with hurricanes, which is the orange area. It goes from like a low to medium chance on August 1st to almost a high chance on August 20th. The peak of hurricane season, on average, is September 10th. Now, is there anything special about September 10th? No. I mean, let's just call it the week of September 10th. That's when we typically have our highest likelihood for having hurricanes. And, sometimes we'll end up with 2, 3, even 4 hurricanes out there at the same time in some of the busiest seasons that we've had. So that's not impossible either. And then notice how things start to calm down once we kind of get over the hump. We've had some terrible hurricanes in late September. One of them that comes to mind was Rita, which hit on the 29th, I think, late September of 2005. Of course, it didn't make a direct impact on Houston. It had a tremendous impact on Texas because of the evacuations and so forth. It ended up having a bigger impact on Port Arthur, Beaumont, but then especially over to Louisiana. But that can happen in late September. Storms, though, very rarely have much of an effect on our area in October. It's not impossible, but it's just really improbable. It doesn't happen very often at all. So generally, we're on that downward trend of the graph, and most of those storms that do form in October either form off the east coast of the U.S. and move away from land, or maybe they form in the Gulf and move over toward Florida. So it's just not as big of a concern once we get to that time of the year. So anyway, another look, if you are just maybe joining us halfway through, the headline is that Tropical Storm Erin has formed in the Atlantic. It is likely to become a hurricane, and these are all satellite estimated wind speeds and pressure levels, because we don't have hurricane hunters that fly out to the the middle or the east side of the Atlantic Ocean. So again, here's a look at its forecast movement. It is moving pretty fast off toward the west at 20 miles per hour. The pressure at 1,004 millibars, that's not a very strong storm, but the deeper, the lower that pressure falls, the stronger the winds get. There's a little bit of a lag. It might be a 12-hour lag where the winds tend to catch up. But so the pressure will continue to drop. The winds will continue to go up. We'll get an update each day, 10 a.m. Well, it would be 4 a.m. and 10 a.m., 4 p.m. and 10 p.m. That's when all these updates are going to come out. So that means on the morning news, if you watch Fox 26, we'll have an update for you right at the beginning of the show when we start. Wake up at 4 a.m. Then we'll have an update probably at HTX at 10, which comes on at 10, and then another update in your tropical outlook, which is generally done by Ramisha. If JD's filling in, or if I'm filling in, I'll do it. But you'll get that at 4 p.m., and then that'll be posted to YouTube as well. So, yeah, I mean, it's going to be probably something that folks on the East Coast are going to be watching pretty closely. But this does not look like our storm. But it's a reminder, though, that we need to check our hurricane preparedness kits, right? I want to invite you to visit us on our tropics page. If you go to fox26houston.com/tropics, you can find our tropical information. You can get the latest look at computer model output and satellite loops and things like that. So go check it out. And yeah, so that's the way things are looking right now. We're going to dodge this one. All right, guys, that'll do it for today's Mondays with Mike. I hope that maybe it will get you thinking about the rest of the month, and as we head into the rest of the hurricane season, are you prepared? Maybe you learned something about how things work out there, and how even these systems that are extremely far away from us, definitely deserve to be watched very closely. It's nothing to make you anxious. No reason to be anxious, to worry, or anything like that, but you just have to realize this is the time of the year when things can happen. And systems can also, by the way, we talked a lot about the Atlantic Ocean, but we live right on the Gulf Coast. We live right next to a very warm body of water, and one of the nice things about living on the Gulf Coast is that you have beaches and all of that good stuff, but one of the cautionary things about living on the Gulf Coast is that you can get hurricanes that form really fast that you don't see tracking across the Atlantic Ocean the way we see a lot of storms like this that roll off the coast of Africa. So we always have to be prepared for that one storm that may form near the coastline and move in and not really give us that much time to prepare. Thank you for tuning in. I want to give a shout out to my mom and Neil in South Florida, where it's been raining a lot lately across Florida. So hopefully y'all are staying dry. And everybody else, have a great day and welcome back to school.